The sun cast long shadows across the dusty main street of Willow Creek, Texas. As Serena Burroughs stepped off the stagecoach, her heart pounding with both hope and trepidation. She kept her gaze downcast, a habit formed from years of cruel whispers about her misaligned eyes, one that looked straight ahead while the other drifted slightly outward. The year was 1878, and she had traveled all the way from Boston to start anew, away from the pointing fingers and mocking laughter that had haunted her since childhood. "Miss, your bags," the stagecoach driver called, breaking her from her thoughts. As she turned to retrieve her belongings, she felt the familiar weight of stares from the townsfolk gathered near the general store. "Look at her eyes," a woman whispered none too quietly. "Strange as can be." Serena's cheeks burned as she gathered her carpetbag and trunk, struggling with the weight. At 22, she had grown accustomed to the comments, but they stung nonetheless. She had come to Willow Creek to serve as the town's new schoolteacher, a position that had seemed like salvation when she'd read the advertisement back in Boston. "Need a hand with those." A deep voice cut through her embarrassment. Serena looked up to see a tall man with sun-bronzed skin and eyes the color of the Texas sky. He wore a dusty cowboy hat and a kind smile that seemed to reach beyond her face to something deeper. "I can manage," she replied automatically, the defensive words tumbling out before she could stop them. The man chuckled softly. "I don't doubt that, madam, but it's mighty hot today and that trunk looks heavier than a sack of feed." Before she could protest further, he lifted the trunk with ease. "Name's Wade Irons. I run the cattle ranch just north of town." "Serena Burroughs," she replied cautiously. "The new schoolteacher." Wade's smile broadened. "Well now, the whole town's been waiting for you to arrive. School's been closed since old Miss Haversham left last spring." He started walking toward the boarding house, and Serena fell into step beside him. "Have you always been the schoolteacher?" he asked conversationally. Serena tensed, waiting for his eyes to finally register her condition, for his expression to shift from friendly to uncomfortable, as happened with everyone eventually. "This is my first teaching position," she admitted. Wade glanced at her, and she saw the moment his eyes took in her misalignment. But instead of the usual reaction, the quick aversion of gaze, the strained politeness, he simply continued speaking as if he hadn't noticed anything unusual. "The children here are good kids, mostly. A bit wild, being raised on ranches and farms, but they've got good hearts." They reached the boarding house, a two-story white building with a neat picket fence. Wade set her trunk down on the porch. "Thank you, Mr. Irons," Serena said formally. "Wade," he corrected with a tip of his hat. "And welcome to Willow Creek, Miss Burroughs." As he turned to leave, he paused and looked back at her. "You know," he said thoughtfully, "my ma always told me that unique eyes see the world differently than most. Reckon that's a gift, not something to hide." With that, he was gone, leaving Serena speechless on the porch, her hand unconsciously rising to touch the corner of her wayward eye. The following morning, Serena awoke early to prepare for her first day at the schoolhouse. Mrs. Patterson, the boarding house owner, had been kind but clearly curious about her new tenant's unusual appearance. "The children can be direct," Mrs. Patterson warned over breakfast. "Don't let it trouble you if they ask questions." Serena nodded, having expected no less. She had faced children's blunt inquiries before, and had prepared a simple explanation about how everyone's bodies were different in their own way. The schoolhouse sat at the edge of town, a simple wooden building with a small bell tower. As Serena approached, she saw a group of children playing in the yard, their laughter carrying on the morning breeze. They fell silent as she drew near, their young eyes wide with curiosity. "Good morning," she greeted them, forcing confidence into her voice. "I am Miss Burroughs, your new teacher." A small girl with pigtails stepped forward. "Your eyes look funny," she announced. Serena took a deep breath. "Yes, they do look different. I was born this way. Now shall we go inside and begin our lessons?" The morning progressed better than Serena had anticipated. The children were curious but not unkind. and she found herself relaxing as she taught the alphabet to the younger ones and arithmetic to the older students. At midday, as the children ate their lunches outside, Serena noticed a familiar figure approaching on horseback. Wade Irons dismounted gracefully and tied his horse to the hitching post before striding toward her. "Miss Burroughs," he called, removing his hat. "Thought I'd stop by and see how your first day is going." Serena felt an unexpected flutter in her chest. "It's going well, thank you, Mr. Irons." "My nephew, Tommy, speaks highly of you already," Wade said, gesturing toward a lanky boy of about 10 who was tossing a ball with his friends. "Tommy is very bright," Serena replied, genuinely impressed with the boy's quick mind. Wade shifted his weight, suddenly seeming less sure of himself. "I was wondering if you might like to join me for supper at the hotel dining room this Saturday." "As a welcome to town," he added hastily. Serena hesitated. In Boston, men had occasionally shown interest in her, but it inevitably faded once they became aware of how others stared or commented on her appearance. She had learned the hard way not to trust initial kindness too readily. "That's very kind, but I should focus on settling in," she declined politely. Wade nodded, accepting her answer without pushing. "Of course, the offer stands if you change your mind." He replaced his hat. "Have a good day, Miss Burroughs." As he walked back to his horse, Serena couldn't help but wonder at his seemingly genuine interest in her well-being. The first weeks in Willow Creek passed quickly, as Serena established herself as a competent and caring teacher. While some adults in town whispered behind her back, most were civil, if a bit distant. The children, however, had fully embraced their new teacher after the initial curiosity wore off. It was after school on a Friday afternoon when trouble arrived in the form of 3 rough-looking men who entered the schoolhouse as Serena was cleaning the blackboard. "Well, look-ye here," the tallest one said, leaning against the doorframe. "Heard the new schoolmarm was an odd one, but ain't you something special?" Serena stiffened, clutching the chalk in her hand. "School is dismissed for the day, gentlemen. If you have children to enroll, you may return on Monday," the second man snickered. "No kids, madam." "Just wanted to see if the rumors were true about them crazy eyes." "Please leave," Serena said firmly, though her heart raced with fear. The schoolhouse was isolated and the children had all gone home. "Now don't be unfriendly," the third man said, moving closer. "We're just being neighborly, wanting to get a better look at you." Before Serena could respond, a shadow darkened the doorway. "I believe the lady asked you to leave." Wade's voice cut through the tension like a knife. The 3 men turned, their postures immediately becoming more guarded. "This ain't your business, Irons," the tall one growled. Wade stepped fully into the schoolhouse, his hand resting casually near his holstered gun. "Miss Burroughs is under my protection. That makes it my business." The men exchanged glances, clearly weighing their options. After a tense moment, the leader shrugged. "Come on, boys, nothing worth getting shot over here." They filed out, each giving Wade a wide berth. When they were gone, Serena released a shaky breath. "Are you all right?" Wade asked, genuine concern in his eyes. Serena nodded, setting down the chalk. "Yes, thank you. How did you happen to be here at just the right moment?" Tommy forgot his reader. "I was bringing it back." Wade held up a small book. "Lucky timing, I suppose." "Very lucky," Serena agreed. She hesitated, then added, "About that supper invitation." Wade's face brightened. "Still stands." "I'd like to accept if it's not too late." His smile was warm enough to chase away the last of her fear. "It's never too late for good company, Miss Burroughs." Saturday evening found Serena dressed in her best gown, a modest blue creation that matched her eyes. She had spent extra time arranging her chestnut hair, trying to draw attention away from her misaligned gaze. Wade arrived at the boarding house promptly, looking transformed in clean clothes and a freshly trimmed beard. He offered his arm with an old-world gallantry that made Serena smile. The hotel dining room was the finest establishment in Willow Creek, which wasn't saying much, but the tables were clean and the food smelled delicious. As Wade seated her, Serena was acutely aware of the curious glances from other diners. Everyone staring, she whispered after they had ordered. Wade looked around casually. They're staring because you're the prettiest woman in town and you're with the most fortunate man. Serena felt her cheeks warm. You don't have to say such things. I never say things I don't mean, Wade replied seriously. My father taught me that a man's word is his bond. Their conversation flowed easily as they ate, touching on books they'd both read, Wade's experiences driving cattle to Kansas, and Serena's training as a teacher in Boston. Why did you leave? Wade asked eventually. Boston seems much more civilized than our dusty corner of Texas. Serena studied her plate. I wanted a fresh start, somewhere people might eventually see beyond my appearance. Wade was quiet for a moment. Can I tell you something, Serena? It was the first time he had used her given name, and it sent a pleasant shiver down her spine. Of course. The first time I saw you, I noticed your eyes right away, he said softly. But what I thought wasn't what you're used to hearing. I thought they were remarkable. Serena looked up, startled. They remind me of the horizon at sunset, Wade continued. When the sky can't decide if it's looking at the earth or the heavens, your eyes don't have a flaw, they have perspective. Tears pricked at Serena's eyes. Never had anyone spoken of her condition with such poetic understanding. Most people mock what they don't understand, she said quietly. Wade reached across the table, his calloused hand covering hers. Those eyes of yours, they see right through to my soul. And I'm mighty glad they do, because it saves me the trouble of trying to explain what kind of man I am. The evening ended with Wade walking Serena back to the boarding house, their conversation continuing under a canopy of stars. At her door, he took her hand gently. May I call on you again? He asked. Serena nodded, finding herself reluctant for the evening to end. I would like that very much. As autumn settled over Willow Creek, Serena and Wade's courtship blossomed. They attended church socials together, rode horseback across Wade's sprawling ranch, and spent quiet evenings on the boarding house porch, talking until Mrs. Patterson tactfully reminded Serena of the hour. Not everyone approved of their growing relationship. Serena overheard whispers from some of the town matrons, questioning what a prosperous rancher like Wade Irons saw in the odd-eyed schoolmarm. Yet for every disapproving glance, there seemed to be someone who had come to respect Serena for her dedication to her students. One crisp October afternoon, Wade invited Serena to a harvest festival at his ranch. Nothing fancy, he explained. Just my ranch hands and their families celebrating the season before winter sets in. Serena accepted eagerly, having heard much about Wade's ranch but seen only portions of it during their rides. When he picked her up in his wagon that Saturday, she was surprised to find Tommy sitting in the back. Hope you don't mind, Wade said. Tommy's folks are visiting relatives in Dallas, so he's staying with me for a spell. Not at all, Serena assured him, genuinely pleased to see her student outside of school. The Iron Creek Ranch was even more impressive than Serena had imagined. The main house was a sturdy two-story structure with a wide porch, surrounded by various outbuildings, corrals, and bunkhouses. Several wagons were already parked nearby, and the sounds of laughter and music filled the air. You built all this? Serena asked in amazement. Started with just 20 acres and 6 cows, Wade said proudly. Now it's 3,000 acres and nearly 1,000 head of cattle. As Wade helped her down from the wagon, Serena noticed an older woman watching them from the porch. She had Wade's same blue eyes and a stern set to her mouth. That's my mother, Wade explained, following her gaze. She lives with me since Pa passed. He led Serena toward the house, Tommy running ahead excitedly. Ma, I want you to meet Miss Burroughs, Wade said as they approached. Eleanor Irons was a formidable woman who had clearly weathered many hardships on the frontier. She examined Serena with an appraising eye, lingering momentarily on her misaligned gaze. So you're the schoolteacher my son can't stop talking about, she said bluntly. It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Irons, Serena replied, extending her hand. Eleanor took it briefly. Wade says you're good with the children. That's important out here where education comes second to survival for most families. I try my best, Serena said modestly. Eleanor nodded once, then turned to Wade. The Millers brought their fiddle player. You should show Miss Burroughs the dancing. It wasn't exactly a warm welcome, but it wasn't the rejection Serena had feared either. As the afternoon progressed, Serena found herself welcomed by most of the ranch hands and their families, many of whom had children in her school. The feast was laid out on long tables under the trees, roasted meats, fresh bread, pies, and preserves. After everyone had eaten their fill, the musicians struck up lively tunes and a space was cleared for dancing. Wade led Serena to the improvised dance floor. I should warn you, I'm better with horses than dancing, he said with a grin. Then we're well matched, Serena laughed. In Boston, I was known for treading on toes. They moved together surprisingly well, Wade's natural grace compensating for Serena's occasional missteps. As they twirled under the autumn sky, Serena caught sight of Eleanor Irons watching them, her expression unreadable. Later, as twilight deepened, Wade took Serena's hand. Come with me, I want to show you something. He led her away from the festivities toward a small rise overlooking the ranch. At the top stood a massive oak tree, its branches spreading wide. This is my thinking spot, Wade explained. When I first bought this land, I'd come up here and plan what I wanted to build. They sat beneath the tree, the sounds of music and laughter drifting up from below. The stars were beginning to appear, pinpricks of light in the darkening sky. What do you think of the ranch? Wade asked, a hint of nervousness in his voice. It's wonderful, Serena replied honestly. You've built something remarkable here. Wade turned to face her, taking both her hands in his. Serena, there's something I need to say, her heart quickened. Yes. I've known many women in my 30 years, but none like you. You've got more courage than most men I know, facing down gossip and unkindness with your head held high. You're gentle with the children but strong enough to stand up to those 3 troublemakers who came to the school. He paused, his thumbs tracing circles on her palms. What I'm trying to say, poorly, is that I'm in love with you, Serena Burroughs. I love your kind heart, your quick mind, and yes, those beautiful eyes that see the world in a way no one else does. Serena felt tears gathering. Wade, are you sure? People will talk, they'll say you could do better, let them talk, he interrupted firmly. I know what I want and it's you, if you'll have me. For a moment, Serena couldn't speak past the lump in her throat. All her life she had been defined by what others saw as a flaw. Now, this man, this good, kind, strong man was offering her his heart without reservation. I love you too, she finally whispered. I think I have since the day you said my eyes were a gift. Wade's smile outshone the stars as he leaned forward and kissed her gently. When they parted, he rested his forehead against hers. There's one more thing, he said softly. This thinking spot of mine, I've always imagined building a house right here, a house with a view of everything I've worked for. Would you consider making that house a home with me as my wife? Serena's answer was another kiss, this one filled with all the hope and love she'd kept guarded for so long. The news of their engagement spread quickly through Willow Creek. Most offered congratulations, though some continued to whisper behind their hands. Eleanor Irons, to Serena's surprise, proved to be an unexpected ally. My son has always known his own mind, she told Serena one afternoon as they sorted through linens for Serena's hope chest. When he was 7, he declared he'd have the biggest ranch in the county. Everyone laughed, but look at him now. You don't mind? Serena asked hesitantly. About my eyes, Eleanor looked up sharply. Girl, I've lived on the frontier for 40 years. I've seen men with missing limbs, women scarred by fire, children born with all manner of differences. What matters is the strength inside. She folded a tablecloth with precise movements. Besides, Wade says those eyes of yours see right to a person's true nature. That's a rare gift in these parts. Winter came to Texas with surprising fierceness that year. Heavy rains turned to sleet in December, making travel difficult and forcing the school to close for several days. Wade worried about his cattle, spending long hours in the bitter cold ensuring they had access to feed and unfrozen water. Serena continued teaching when weather permitted, but also spent time planning their spring wedding and preparing to move into the house Wade had begun building on the rise beneath the oak tree. It was during one particularly nasty storm in January that disaster struck. Wade had ridden out with several hands to check on a herd trapped in a low-lying pasture. When he didn't return by nightfall, Eleanor sent one of the ranch hands to town to fetch Serena. "He wouldn't want you to worry," Eleanor said when Serena arrived at the ranch, soaked and frightened. "But I thought you should be here." They waited through the night, taking turns watching at the window while the other tried to rest. As dawn broke, bringing with it clearing skies, riders appeared on the horizon. "They're back," Eleanor announced, her relief palpable. Serena rushed outside, heedless of the mud, to see 3 riders approaching slowly. One horse carried double, and with a surge of fear, she recognized Wade as the slumped figure being supported by another rider. "He's alive," the foreman called as they neared. Horse slipped in the mud and fell on him. Think his legs broke, and he took a nasty knock to the head. The next few days were a blur of worry as the doctor came and went, confirming a broken leg and concussion. Wade drifted in and out of consciousness, sometimes recognizing Serena and his mother, other times confused and disoriented. Serena refused to leave his side, sleeping in a chair beside his bed and helping Eleanor change bandages and administer medicine. On the 3rd night, as she bathed his fevered brow, Wade's eyes fluttered open with recognition. "Serena," he murmured. "I'm here," she said, taking his hand. "You're going to be fine." He studied her face in the lamplight. "Your eyes are the first thing I see clearly, must be getting better." Serena laughed through sudden tears. "Yes, you stubborn cowboy, you are." Wade recovered slowly but steadily. By March, he was able to move around with crutches, supervising the completion of their new home and making plans for spring calving. Through it all, Serena divided her time between the schoolhouse and the ranch, earning the respect of even her harshest critics through her unwavering dedication to both her students and her fiancé. Their wedding day dawned clear and mild in early April. Wildflowers carpeted the pastures around Iron Creek Ranch, and the new house on the rise stood ready to receive them. The ceremony took place under the great oak tree, with nearly everyone from Willow Creek in attendance. Serena wore a simple white gown with a crown of bluebonnets in her hair. As she walked toward Wade, who stood tall and strong having finally discarded his crutches the week before, she felt none of the self-consciousness that had plagued her for so long. The preacher spoke of love and commitment, of weathering life's storms together, and of seeing with the heart rather than the eyes. When it came time for vows, Wade took Serena's hands in his and spoke with emotion that carried across the gathering. "Serena, before I met you, I thought I knew what I wanted in life. Land, cattle, a legacy to leave behind. But you showed me there's more to living than what a man can build with his hands. You taught me to see with my heart." He squeezed her hands gently. "Those beautiful eyes of yours looked right past my rough edges to what was inside, and for that alone, I'd love you forever. But you're also brave and kind and stronger than anyone knows. I promise to stand beside you through whatever comes, to love you completely, and to remind you every day of how precious you are to me." Tears slipped down Serena's cheeks as she responded with her own vows, promising to love and support him, to build a life of purpose together, and to always see the best in him as he had seen in her. As the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, Wade cupped Serena's face gently in his hands and kissed her with a tenderness that spoke of forever, heedless of the cheers and applause around them. The celebration afterward lasted well into the evening, with food and dancing and stories shared under the stars. As the last guests departed, Wade led his bride to their new home, carrying her over the threshold as tradition demanded. Inside, the house was simple but beautiful, with large windows that would frame the sunrise over the ranch. Wade had furnished it with pieces brought all the way from San Antonio, and Alina had contributed handmade quilts and curtains. "Welcome home, Mrs. Irons," Wade said, setting Serena gently on her feet. She turned slowly, taking in the home they would share. "It's perfect," she whispered. Wade wrapped his arms around her from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder as they both gazed out the window at the starlit ranch below. "Not as perfect as you," he murmured against her ear. 5 years later, Serena stood on the porch of their home, watching as Wade taught their 3-year-old son, James, to sit on a gentle pony. Their daughter, Elizabeth, just a year old, slept in her cradle nearby. Willow Creek had grown considerably, with a new railway spur bringing increased commerce and new settlers. Serena had continued teaching until James was born, then reluctantly stepped down, though she still tutored children who needed extra help. Wade had expanded the ranch even further, experimenting with new breeding techniques and modern farming methods. Iron Creek Ranch was now one of the most prosperous in the county, and Wade was considering running for town council in the upcoming election. As she watched her husband lift their laughing son from the pony, Serena reflected on how much had changed. The whispers about her eyes had long since faded into background noise, overshadowed by her identity as Mrs. Irons, respected rancher's wife and former beloved teacher. Wade looked up, catching her eye across the yard. His smile, still as warm as the day they met, spread across his face. He handed the pony's reins to a ranch hand and swung James onto his shoulders before striding toward the house. "How are my beautiful girls?" He called as he climbed the porch steps. "Mama, I rode a horse," James announced proudly from his perch. "I saw," Serena laughed, ruffling his dark hair. "You're going to be a fine horseman like your father." Wade set James down and checked on Elizabeth before pulling Serena into his embrace. "Have I told you today how much I love you?" he murmured. "Only twice," she teased. "You're slipping, Mr. Irons," he chuckled, kissing her forehead. "Well then, let me be clear, I love you more with each passing day, Serena Irons. Those remarkable eyes of yours still see straight to my soul, and I wouldn't have it any other way." As the setting sun bathed the ranch in golden light, Serena leaned into her husband's strong embrace, surrounded by the family and home they had built together. From the lonely, mocked schoolteacher to beloved wife, mother, and respected member of the community, her journey had been one of courage and love. And through it all, Wade had never seen her crooked eyes as a flaw, but as a window to something deeper, a perspective that made her uniquely able to see the truth in others, to look beyond surfaces to the heart of things. In loving her, he had taught her to love herself, and together they had built a life more beautiful than either could have imagined alone.